Let's join together in prayer as we begin tonight. Dear God, we give you thanks have been and where we've been, what's been distracting us, presence. Help us to listen to each other as we listen to you and the guidance of your Holy Spirit. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
In the book of
Genesis.
And did we finish? I can't quite remember if we finished chapter 31.
Yes.
Yes, we did. We're on 32. So 32 is a really fun chapter.
I think we finished 30.
No, I
think
was going to say, I put down that we start on chapter.
Yeah, we're starting
31.
31.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're starting on 31?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, 32 is still a fun chapter.
And I have
Maybe we'll
pictures
get
of
to that
32.
tonight.
That's what I'm waiting for you to get to.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So we have, last week we left Jacob, and Laban had once again done something pretty nasty to Jacob. What had happened that was bad to Jacob that God was able to turn around at the end of 30?
Oh, it had to do with the sheep.
His father-in-law had fooled him, and then he.
Jacob could have the speckled and those to his sons, so they weren't his anymore. But Jacob did some genetic plot for himself, and we're going to find out. Now, remember, we talked about, and when Jacob married Leah and then Rachel, there could have been something that was a tradition of the time that Jacob, after he worked so far and so long, would become the heir of Laban, unless he had sons. So these sons, we're going to find out that Laban did indeed have other sons, and they're probably substantially younger than Jacob. Get the right one. Jacob, younger than Jacob, but he has sons now, and now Jacob is an heir, and the sons are going to have to share the inheritance with Jacob. So the sons aren't real thrilled with Jacob in the beginning. So let's see what happens. We're going to start chapter 31, and let's go through. Let's just start with 1 through 3 to start.
I can start.
Okay.
But Jacob soon learned that Laban's sons were grumbling about him. Jacob has robbed our father of everything, they said. He has gained all his wealth at our father's expense. And Jacob began to notice a change in Laban's attitude toward him. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your father and grandfather and to your relatives there, and I will be with you."
All right, so we see that we've got the sons now. And is there any truth to what the sons are claiming?
No, I would say Laban is the one that's kind of taking advantage of Jacob the whole time.
Mm-hmm. But Jacob is shrewd. We've learned that from the very beginning of Jacob. Jacob is smart, and he figured out him. And so the brother had figured out how to.
And is he doing it to all of them, or is he just doing it to a few?
Well,
is he doing that to all the animals, all of the sheep?
Okay, the sheep. So Jacob was supposed to get the speckled and the striped ones, and he learned how to genetically make the strong ones the striped. So the ones that were left for Laban, the plain white ones got smaller and weaker, and they did get less and less. Okay, my internet connection is very bad. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Some of you, when you're talking, is breaking a lot for me, so I might have to ask you to repeat. Let's read now from verse 4 through 13.
I can do that. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Then the Lord said to Jacob, we did that. So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where the flocks were. He said to them, "I see that your father's attitude towards me is not what it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. Know that I've worked for your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 3 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. He said, the speckled ones will be your wages. Then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, the streaked ones will be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me. In breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, and spotted. The angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob. I answered, Here I am. And he said, Look, speckled or spotted, for I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land.
Right, so Jacob is getting them what happened, why he was able to do this. So what do you think Rachel and Leah are thinking at this point?
Well, it tells us in the next couple of verses. So.
I'm not sure that they really have a choice, but I would think
Yeah.
they would not necessarily think it's a great idea. And I haven't read ahead yet.
I just
Carol,
happened to peek.
since you read ahead, why don't you read 14 through 21? See what happens.
Okay. Then Rachel and Leah replied, Do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. Surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children. So do whatever God has told you. Then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated in Paddan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban, the Aramean, is that right? By not telling him he was running away. So he fled with all he had, crossed the Euphrates River, and headed for the hill country of Gilead.
Okay. So what are Leah and Rachel? What do they think about their father?
They're not happy with him.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
He spent everything that should have been their inheritance. And let's go. Let's get out of here. Now, what did Rachel do?
She stole it. Mine says the household idols. Her father's the idols.
Okay. She stole some of the household gods. And these, now let's think back. We got to go think of everything we've learned since Abraham. So Abraham, this is Abraham's hometown. Abraham is the father of whom? And I'm talking bigger than just Isaac and Ishmael and the other ones from Keturah.
Jews.
Abraham is the father of the Jews. He is the one that began the worship of the God of the Jews. Before that, there were all of these other gods. This is the time when Abraham, this is this particular God. So when we go back and Laban is back at the hometown, and they're not part of this same faith of Abraham. We have to remember that. We think about this through the perspective, Laban is not Jewish. So he's got these other gods that are going to be ones that he relies on, he thinks has power, and Rachel stole them. Why did Rachel steal these gods?
Either to be mean to her father because he would want them and she took them, or to, I mean, if that's her father, she was raised without the God of the Jewish God. Maybe she wanted to have something to worship when she left, something from her home.
She might think this is still powerful. These are powerful gods, and they're leaving their hometown, they're leaving Horn and the one daughter, and she wants to take something with her. I don't know, but we think about it. This was a big deal because it's marked here. We're going to find out how big a deal this is. So she took the power, but she thought she was taking the power from the house of Laban, his power. So think about that.
Molly?
All right. Yeah.
So it mentions Gilead, and I don't mention Gilead in my presentation, but our tour guide in Jordan wrote a book, The Land of God, and talked about the different kingdoms, the different areas, and Gilead is in the north. Do you mind if I share a little bit about where Gilead was and what it was like? Would that help? It says in the Bible dictionary, Gilead means rocky region. It's a mountainous region bordered by the Golan Heights in the north and the Ammonite kingdom in the south, the Arabian desert in the east, and the River Jordan in the west. The mountains of Gilead are a hard, rocky region of limestone, a farming land of olives, figs, and pomegranate, and a good cattle grazing country. It's located over 3,600 feet above sea level. Gilead was specially noted for its balm collected from trees in the Gilead Mountains and worth twice its weight in silver. It was a rare perfume used medicinally. The Old Testament often mentions the balm of healing ointment that comes from Gilead east of the Jordan River. Of course, the song's
I
going through your
love
head, right?
that song. Mhm.
Many stories took place in the land of Gilead in the Old Testament. One of the most interesting occurs when Laban, Jacob's uncle and his father-in-law, caught up with Jacob, and when Jacob pitched his tent in the mountains and Laban and his brothers pitched in the mountains of Gilead. So, and then it goes on, it tells the story that we're talking about, but I thought that was kind of neat because we were we were right on the border of Gilead when we were in Jordan. So, you know what, I've heard about this forever, there's a balm in
Right.
Gilead. I never knew where it was. It was
It's
a
too
real
bad you didn't
place.
use some of that balm on your ribs or your elbow. My God.
Yeah, what we didn't get to the balm of Gilead. But I think it's interesting to know that it actually is a place. It's a real place. And it's in northern Jordan.
In our story, Jacob is headed towards Gilead,
Okay.
part of the promised land. And how did he go about leaving? Was there a
He
party
snuck
saying
out.
goodbye to him or anything? He snuck out. He's going, I'm not saying goodbye to anybody. 22 through 30.
I can do that. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. Then God came to Laban the Aramean and in a dream at night and said to him, Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? You've deceived me and you've carried off my daughters like captives in war. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of tambourines and harps? You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you, but last night the God of your father said to me, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Now you have gone off because you long to return to your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?
Oh.
Oh,
Dun, dun, dun.
oh, there we go. Here's the problem. All right. So Laban, what was the punishment? Probably says in my book. I want you to think about a minute while I do a moment of research.
Oh, she looks up the answer.
I'll look up the answer. Yeah.
What was the punishment for what?
What would he punish Jacob for doing?
Oh, well, he's saying that he carried his daughters off secretly. So kidnapping.
And he took his gods.
Okay, took his gods. I mean, he says, all right, you took what was yours, but why did you take my gods, my household gods? Oh, this is not good. Oh, I can't find it. Anyway, we don't know, but Laban may have been able to disinherit him because remember we said he may have been in line for an inheritance from Laban.
Mhm.
So that might have been the punishment. Maybe Laban was coming with a bandful. How many people had said Laban took his brothers with him and chased Jacob for 7 days? That may have been a pretty big band of people coming to go and attack and say, no, we're taking back our stuff. We don't know. But fortunately, God sent a dream to Laban. And apparently, what can we pull from this? If Laban had this dream and then he's worried about his household gods, what can we deduce about Laban?
Well, he listened to the Jewish God in the dream, but he also wanted his gods, that was stolen. So he's a spiritual kind of person.
Or I think he's like, okay, my daughters aren't important as my gods, my idols.
Yeah.
Maybe the word superstitious.
Wow.
I don't know. Could be that he's. I mean, when I've traveled, I remember when I was in Africa and in Haiti, and I hear stories about people telling me the powers of these gods and different things, and it's just like I know that Dorcas was afraid years ago when she was in Haiti to bring one of her children out because she saw these people would give them, they would put curses on them by looking at them, looking at the babies. And they truly believe that. And the whole family is terrified of cats because they say the cats are mean, but there's also this idea of this thing called the Lugaroo, which is like a vampire, that the cats can be these demons, that people can turn into cats and be demons, and they're terrified of cats.
I have 2 of those at my house, by the way.
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
don't bring them there.
They're
I have-
sitting right here listening. I'm hoping they'll be converted. Go ahead.
Mario, years ago, Mario was at my house and we had an old cat that was really a nice cat and didn't do anything. And she did what cats do, they go when they kind of grab the ground, and he just terrified. What's she doing? He was horrified
Wow.
that the cat was going to attack him. And that I don't live in their shoes and I don't know, but it seems superstitious to me. But they are people of great faith. So, it's not for me to judge, but it seems that Laban was one of these people who had a lot of fear. He just had this one dream. Maybe he was out to get Jacob, got the dream, goes, well, God came to me in a dream, and I'm not going to mess with you because he's afraid. But why did you take my household? Why did you take my gods? This is really that is just the most, you took my grandchildren, you took my daughters, but you took my gods. It's just like the ultimate mess. So Rachel, you were a bad girl. Let's go 31 through 35.
I rushed away because I was afraid, Jacob answered. I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. But as for your gods, see if you can find them, and let the person who has taken them die. And if you find anything else that belongs to you, identify it before all these relatives of yours, and I will give it back. But Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the household idols. Laban went first into Jacob's tent to search there, then into Leah's, and then the tents of the 2 servant wives. But he found nothing. Finally, he went into Rachel's tent. But Rachel had taken the household idols and hidden them in her camel's saddle, and now she was sitting on them. When Laban had thoroughly searched her tent without finding them, she said to her father, "Please, sir, forgive me if I don't get up for you. I'm having my monthly period." So Laban continued his search, but he could not find the household idols.
Oh, Rachel.
Mhm.
The one thing, so Laban would have been, he might have, she just lied at time, that unclean stuff, can't get up right now. 6 through 42.
I can do that. What is it? 36 to 42?
Yep.
Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. "What is my crime?" he asked Laban. "What sin have I committed that you hunt me down? Now that you have searched through all my goods in front of your relatives and mine, and let them judge between the 2 of us. I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he rebuked you."
Wow, that's pretty
Are Laban
strong.
and Jacob,
Ask again.
are Jacob and Laban good friends?
Mm-mm.
Not. No. Jacob has laid it right out. Look what you've done. And you've tried to take everything from me, and God has been good to me. I have done everything for you. Lots of words that he was thinking. And he left. And even though, look at Jacob, he left because he was afraid that Laban would come and take his wives from him. And he's been married. How many years has he been married now? Oh, this is a good question, but a math question. How many years has Jacob been married to Leah and Rachel? Remember, they're only a week apart. He got them basically at the same time.
20?
20?
Nope.
Well, 11 to 4.
Got him.
Oh, no, because he had to work 10 years. No, that can't be
No,
right.
yeah,
7
well, but
years
he
is
got
one,
it.
and then
He said
another
7 years, but he
for-
got them right away. So just
immediately. He got them though, before
Wait,
he,
wait.
No, he had to work 10 years.
Work?
No,
7 years.
no,
7
but
years.
remember he said he worked for me for 7 years, but then I thought. he
That's the
gave it
second wife.
That
That's the
was for the
second.
second wife.
Thank you, that's
I
the
think so.
second one,
Years for the
okay,
block.
thanks.
So 7 plus
All right.
7
Okay.
plus
20.
Okay, I'm just able to hear you all breaking up, but I'll Leah and the next Rachel, that he had to work 7 more years. And then he worked for the sheep for 6 more years. So how many years was he married?
To whom?
Both of them.
he was married to
13.
13. 13 years.
Married,
worked
let it
7
go.
Yeah. Worked for 7 years first without married them both, worked
Oh,
7.
yeah. He worked and then he got married. Yeah.
And then he had the 2 handmaidens also sometime in there, but he'd been married to Leah and Rachel for 13 years. So the oldest child is how old?
We're doing math tonight.
Come on,
We
how
need
old is the
Allison.
oldest?
12.
Well, if they had 9 months after they,
I was going to say.
12 years.
12 years old. So the oldest one is 12. Is this significant that the oldest child is 12 and he would leave at that
Well,
time?
would that be the age when he would become an heir or receive a blessing or become?
13
Okay,
is the
13.
age of bar mitzvah when they become an adult.
Right.
So he left just before the oldest child was going to be an adult, because what would Laban do at that point? Don't know. Just, was it a coincidence? Who knows? But he got a 12-year-old son all the way down. Bing, 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 bing. We haven't had the last one yet. All right. So Jacob is on his way. He's not coming back. It's very clear. And he's got these household gods with him now that I don't know what he would think of if he knew Rachel had him. But now let's see how the end of the story goes, because there's a significant verse I want you to, when we get to verse 49, I want you to just pay attention to that verse. So let's read 43. I guess let's stop through 50. 43 through 50.
May I ask a question first, please?
Yeah.
Okay, back, he was saying, set out here in front of us and before our relatives for all to see, let them judge between us. Doesn't really say if they did that or not, but it seems like, wow, if that's the first time that maybe all the relatives heard all the ways that Laban took advantage of them. I'm curious about that, because then maybe their eyes would be open then.
And tell me
Instead of,
which verse you're talking about, because
well, remember when
moved out.
like 36, 37, after
Okay.
Jacob became angry and challenged
Mhm.
Laban, remember, like, what's my crime? You haven't found anything. So he said, basically, tell me my crime in front of us before our relatives. For curious if all that, then when he really told them every terrible thing he did. I'm
Yeah,
wondering
it
if
could
the
be.
relatives-
Good question.
I'm hoping the
right.
relatives heard it, to maybe have their eyes opened a little.
Could be, because they're all going and look at Jacob's a bad guy, and
Mm-hmm.
he's probably been pretty quiet because he knew that if he got in trouble, Laban had the power. He was probably the chieftain of the tribe then, and Laban had the power to take his wives, his children, everything. So yeah, so all right, I'm out, and he's not. Where is this conversation taking place?
Gilead.
Remind us. Gilead. No.
No. Mm-mm.
Longer in area where Laban has his power base, so it's safer now. He can't call up all the troops. Everybody's already there. Guess what? This is why I left. Not coming back ever. Better kiss those grandkids bye, because you're not seeing them again. All right, so let's go now. 43 through 50.
I'll do that.
Thanks.
Then Laban replied to Jacob, "These women are my daughters, these children are my grandchildren, and these flocks are my flocks. In fact, everything you see is mine. But what can I do now about my daughters and their children? So come, let's make a covenant, and you and I, and it will be a witness to our commitment." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a monument. Then he told his family members, "Gather some stones." So they gathered stones and piled them in a heap. Then Jacob and Laban sat down beside the pile of stones to eat a covenant meal, to To commemorate the event, Laban called the place Jegar Sahata, which means witness pile in Aramaic, and Jacob called it Gilead, which means witness pile in Hebrew. Then Laban declared, "This pile of stones will stand as a witness to remind us of the covenant we have made today." This explains why it was called Gilead, witness pile, but it was also called Mizpah, which means watchtower. For Laban said, "May the Lord keep watch between us to make sure that we keep this covenant when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you marry other wives, God will see it even if no one else does. He is witness to this covenant between us."
You ever heard of the Mizpah blessing? The Lord watch between me and thee when we're not present with one another, something like that.
I have it on my living room wall.
Okay.
Someone gave it to me, yeah.
And that's supposed to be a precious thing. When we're apart, God's going to watch us. What does it really mean in this? What was the context that this was taken from?
It was between Laban and Jacob.
Yeah, and it's saying God's watching you.
God's watching you. Yeah.
It's not, oh, God bless you when I can't be with you. No, it's I'm not being with you, but don't you do anything wrong because God's watching you. And you got this plastered all over our walls. It says, "Watch out, God's watching you." I had one a church about my age, but I was a lot younger. They seemed really old, and they would always hold him at the end, and they'd say, "The Lord watch between me and thee when we're not depart from each other." And I thought, I knew at the time, I thought, you don't know what you're saying.
It
That's
was given to me as a lovely blessing. It really was given to me.
That's what you think.
But it isn't. I mean, Laban is going, "Man, I can't get you, but I would if I could." It's because this is what Laban said. But just know, I'm making this witness pile. This mound is a witness to say, I am telling you, if you do anything to my daughters. And then let's see what Jacob's response said. That this is our witness. You're not allowed to marry anybody else. You got my daughters. Don't be thinking you can do that. God's watching you. That whole tone. So let's see. Let's go from 51 to the end of the chapter.
I can. Oh, go ahead.
Laban also said to Jacob, "Here is this heap, and here is this pillar I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not go past this heap to your side to harm you, and that you will not go past this heap and pillar to my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there in the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. After they had eaten, they spent the night there. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home.
Okay. And thus ends the story of Laban. He's lost everything. I mean, he's lost all. I mean, he's got some sons that are kind of sour people, but he's lost his daughters. He knows he's never going to see them again, and to know that they're never going to see it because they put this pillar up to say, "You don't go past this. I won't go past it. You don't go past it. This is the boundary line. We're never going to see each other again." And is anybody crying over that?
Doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't seem like it, no. I can't imagine, though, that Laban saying goodbye to all these grandchildren would be happy about it and saying goodbye to his wives. Laban might be sad, but the other side of it aren't going, "You're a liar and you're a cheater."
Well, he
And
also
we've had
has to
it
be
with you.
stressed about his
And we're going
gods that
on.
are missing.
Yeah, Rachel never owned up to having them.
Mm.
Never did. No, whatever reason she took them, but it was a big deal. And then Laban probably still knows that Jacob has them. Just because he couldn't find them doesn't mean he didn't have them.
Molly, in back in verses 24 verse 45, where it talks about, and 46, where it talks about taking the stones and setting up the boundaries by piling stones.
Mhm.
We saw many incidences of that in Jordan, because this is all taking place in Jordan. And we saw lots of incidences of all these piles of stones out in the field. And we asked our guide what that was, and he referred back to this verse and said those are boundary markers, and they still use piles of stones as boundary markers.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
kind of what this was. I mean, he made a boundary and he said, you don't come past this point, and I won't go past this point.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Wow.
interesting that they still do
It
that
is.
today.
Yes, very interesting.
Interesting, that just, it brings to mind, have you ever watched the movie Schindler's List?
Mm.
Started
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and at the end of the movie, they show the actual grave of Schindler, and all of these people come that had been actually, they were either actual people that had been saved by him or descendants, and they all brought a rock.
Mhm.
They just piled it.
And I think he's buried in Jerusalem, isn't he?
Yes.
I think so. I think that's what they told us. We weren't able to go see his grave, but it was near where we were. So anyway, but they all brought a rock.
Reminds me, I don't know how that's related, but that idea of the pile of rocks is,
It's significant. I mean, it really is.
yeah. So I bet none of you are ever going to give a Mizpah blessing to anybody ever again.
Oh,
Unless you want that.
Carol,
Yeah.
was that from
Yeah,
your,
my sister.
from
I'm
your
sorry,
in-laws?
Dan.
Was your
Say
gift
again.
was your gift from your in-laws?
It was from a Bible study group. It's like the blessing that Ruth and
Naomi?
Naomi, wasn't it? That is always quoted at weddings, your God will be my God, and I'll go wherever you go, whatever that blessing is. Well, that was between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, not between a husband and a wife. And I mean, that one's always misunderstood too, but this is taking the Bible out of context, but it really was a beautiful blessing they gave me.
Yeah.
Talking about
Always
this,
cracks me up.
the stones, because every year when Ron and I traveled with American Music Abroad, we make sure we take students to a concentration camp. So we took them to Dachau many times. And that's powerful when you see the monument to say never again in all the different languages and all the stones that are left there in memory of everyone that died. It's powerful, and you just cry.
Mhm.
That's giving me goosebumps.
All right, we're not going to go on further today because one, the connection isn't good and anybody's listening to it is going to have a hard time.
But can I add one more thing before we stop? I know you're going to get tired of me saying this, but I am really excited to share some of the things that I saw. And I've been waiting for chapter 32 to come along, and I'm going to be gone next week. I'm sorry. I am. And so in chapter 32 and verse 22, where it talks about Jacob wrestling with God at the ford of the Jabbok. Can I share my screen? I'm going to see if I can do this.
Okay. I've got let you share for
Okay.
just a second.
I don't know if this.
Okay.
All right, let me
You
see.
can share now.
Oh, there it is. Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
there it is. Yep.
You can see that?
Okay,
yes.
so where's the ford of the,
The Jabbok River.
I'm not,
It is somewhere in this valley, and this is where Jacob and Esau met. And it's where Jacob wrestled with God and his name was changed to Israel. I mean, that's what's coming up in the next chapter. And I've been waiting for that chapter to come so I could share this.
hey,
But you can see that picture. I just thought that was one of my favorite places. There are probably 4 things that were my favorite things to see, and this was one of them, because this is one of those actual places where that took place, somewhere in the area.
Carol,
Wow.
are those olive groves in the distance? All the trees, looks like trees and lines. Is that olive trees?
Yeah, and I'm not sure about that. It could be. It could be. This was not a picture I took. This was one someone else took.
okay.
But-
Well, you can say yes, because nobody will be able to prove that it isn't.
Okay, so sure. That is a big thing that they do is. Anyway, thanks for letting me share that, because like I said, I won't be here to do that next week.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Next week will be a fun week as we we see that Jacob prepares to meet Esau. And we can remember this is going to be quite a wild chapter. So Jacob has just come up against Laban. He has gone, you did this to me, and I'm leaving. Now Jacob has got to meet the one who has the right to say, you did this to me.
Mm.
To be. Mhm. So, any other questions or comments before I turn off the recording? Okay, and for those that are, anybody that's tuning in on this, I apologize for the recording. This is recorded on the night we had the ice storm, and I think my internet has been very shaky as there's lots of things going on outside. So anyway, we'll see you all next week, and I'll turn the recording off.